What is the price of 20 lives, ladies and gentlemen? That's the number of lives that have been lost in the last 1 week alone. Rattled by peace in Kashmir, Pakistan-backed terrorists have killed 11 civilians and 9 army personnel in just the last 14 days. Makhan Lal Bindru was a chemist. He was killed on October the 5th. Virendra Paswan was a Pani Puri seller. He was killed on October the 5th. Mohammad Shafi Lone, taxi driver, killed on October the 5th. Supinder Kaur, school principal in Srinagar, killed on October the 7th. Deepak Chand, school teacher from Jammu, killed in Srinagar on October the 7th. Arvind Kumar Sa, a migrant from Bihar, killed on October the 16th. Sagir Ahmed, migrant carpenter from Uttar Pradesh, killed on October the 16th. Raja Rishi Dev, migrant worker from Bihar, killed on October the 17th. Yogendra Rishi Dev, migrant worker from Bihar, killed on October the 17th. 11 civilians who've been murdered by Pakistan-backed terrorists in just the last 2 weeks in a spate of targeted killings of people from outside Kashmir like at no other time. Well, in the wake of these attacks, the army has also launched a massive crackdown on terrorists, and in doing so, the army has lost 9 brave hearts in the line of duty fighting with terrorists being sent across the line of control. Subedar Ajay Singh, killed in action. Naib Subedar Jaswinder Singh, killed in action. Naik Harendra Singh, killed in action. Naik Mandeep Singh, killed in action. Rifleman Yogambar Singh, killed in action. Rifleman Vikram Singh Negi, killed in action. Sipai Vaishak H, he was a nursing assistant, killed in action. Sipai Saraj Singh, killed in action. Sipai Gajjan Singh, killed in action. 9 army personnel in 5 days in 2 separate encounters with terrorists sent by Pakistan across the line of control. 11 plus 9 is 20. 20 Indian lives have been lost as a result of Pakistani terror in a span of just 2 weeks. The targeted killings of non-locals, people from outside Kashmir, people who have been migrants and who actually came to Kashmir for a livelihood. And the word non-local and non-native is so offensive. It's such an ugly phrase. These are Indian citizens who've chosen to work in Kashmir or stay back in Kashmir and work there. Well, this flare-up in violence has triggered an unprecedented exodus of workers from the valley. People from the outside who went in are now being chased out. A large number of migrant laborers have been seen sitting on the footpath outside the Jammu railway station. They said they would have to go to the Kashmir Valley. They would never go to the Kashmir Valley again as terrorists are literally targeting and threatening them. Narrating their ordeal, several of these migrant laborers are simply too scared to speak. And when they do, they speak to India Today. Sunilji Bhatt and Kamaljit Sandhu bring you this spine-chilling report.
Days after selectively targeting the Hindu-Sikh minorities in Kashmir, now Pakistan-backed terrorists are killing poor migrant laborers in a planned strategy to spread fear against non-locals. On Sunday, terrorists in Kulgam barged into an accommodation of migrant laborers from Bihar, shooting 2 to death, leaving 1 critically injured. This comes after a spate of civilian killings in last 2 weeks, with over 10 civilians, mainly non-Kashmiris, who have been killed. Fear of further attacks has led to exodus of thousands of laborers from the Kashmir Valley. Scared, desperate to save their life, ruining the loss of livelihood.
क्या काम करते थे, अब क्यों जाना पड़ रहा है?
गोलगप्पे बेचते थे हम, इसलिए वो साथ वाले हम मर रहे थे, इसलिए हम घर जा रहे हैं।
क्या भय का माहौल है, क्या है?
और भय का साहब डर के वजह से जा रहे हैं। रेड़े वालों को जब मानने लगे तो हम जब क्या करेंगे, जब काम करें।
यहाँ पे वापस आने का इरादा नहीं है?
नहीं नहीं, यहाँ पे नहीं अब।
क्यों, डर लगता है?
हाँ, और क्या, डर तो लगता है।
कितने सालों से कश्मीर घाटी आए हैं और इस तरह का आतंक का साया कभी आपने महसूस किया?
नहीं, इस तरह का कभी नहीं महसूस किया था, क्योंकि ऐसा हमारे साथ हुआ ही नहीं कभी।
रूम में तो मत है, सुरक्षा दल तो अपने जगह जगह पे है, यहाँ रूम में घुस के मार रहा है, इसी के वजह जा रहा है आदमी सब।
कौन से राज्य से?
छत्तीसगढ़ राज्य, जांजगीर जिले का हूँ मैं।
कश्मीर में कहाँ अभी काम कर रहे थे?
पूरा हुक्म है, हम लोग ईंट भट्ठे में काम कर रहे थे। वहाँ का मालिक हमको इतना मार मार के पूरा सीजन भर काम करवाया और हमको ना पैसे नहीं दिया, मार के भगा दिया वहाँ से 12 बजे रात को।
हमें जल्द से जल्द छत्तीसगढ़ पहुँचाना चाहिए। बाकी कुछ नहीं चाहिए सर, हमें मरने थूना जाना है सर उधर।
वहाँ कभी नहीं जाएंगे, हम मर जाएंगे भी नहीं जाएंगे, वहाँ कभी नहीं जाएंगे। हमारा मजदूर पैसा दिलाया जाए और हमको छत्तीसगढ़ लेकर जाए घर।
You can see that they have packed their bags and arrived here in Jammu. These were the scenes that were witnessed in 1990 when an entire community of Kashmiri Pandits had to leave their homes due to the threats that were issued by the terrorists, due to the killings that were carried out by the terrorists.
Jaish-linked terror group United Liberation Front has claimed responsibility for the gruesome murders, also warning migrants of more attacks and threatening them to leave. Police has been responding with swift action, launching a massive crackdown, detaining hundreds of suspects for alleged links with the terror groups. Joint operations by the Indian Army, the CRPF and the Jammu Kashmir Police had neutralized at least 13 terrorists with 9 encounters in 9 days. To review the security situation, Home Minister Amit Shah called a marathon meeting with police chiefs of all states. Director General of the CRPF and NIA is in the Kashmir Valley presently, monitoring intelligence inputs. Ex gratia relief of 1 lakh rupees has been announced by District Administration Anantnag, while Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar announced 2 lakh rupees each to the kin of both victims and also asked the centre to assist Bihar residents in Kashmir.
वहाँ पर तो कुछ गड़बड़ तो हो ही रहा है। कुछ लोग जानबूझ करके बाहर से जो लोग काम करने के लिए वहाँ पर पहुँचे हुए हैं, उनके साथ कुछ हो रहा है और हम लोग इस बात को लेकर के एकदम वहाँ भी अलर्ट कर रहे हैं कि देख लिया जाए कि लोग तो जाने के लिए स्वतंत्र है।
Meanwhile, a political face-off has erupted on the recent killings.
आज वक्त आ गया है कि भाजपा सरकार को, गृह मंत्री को, जो ये हमले बढ़ रहे हैं, इस पे अब जवाब देना चाहिए कि नोटबंदी, आर्टिकल 370 का क्या नतीजा ये बढ़ता आतंकवाद है।
Modi government has already cracked down heavily on the Pakistani-sponsored terrorism, and we will keep on continuing hitting hard to the backbones of the Pakistani terrorists.
Is the situation on ground the rerun of horror of the 1990s, but that in the Naya Kashmir?
For scores of migrant labourers who head back home leaving Kashmir Valley, it's a tough choice but a clear one. They have chosen life over livelihood. For now, they head back home only to say they will return once things are normal. But despite added security measures, many of them who are staying back live with a sense of insecurity and a sense of fear. With camera person Sanjeev, this is Kamaljeet Sandhu in Srinagar for India Today.
While there's palpable fear in the Kashmir Valley, security has been beefed up at industrial units and factories where people from outside Kashmir who've chosen to work there. And remember, on India Today, we reject this disgusting term non-locals and non-natives, which some other shameless channels have been using. These are all Indian citizens choosing to work in Kashmir, which is a part of India, where they're employed. India Today's Kamaljeet Sandhu travelled to one such industrial setup in Sopore in South Kashmir, where she witnessed that proactive measures are being taken by security forces. There is increased checking.
क्यों जा रहे हैं?
जा रहे हैं, अब यहाँ मौसम थोड़ा ठंडा उंडा होने लग गया। हमला सुना था सर, हमला बाटे हुआ, लोग मुआवजा जाता वही से, बोले भाई को घर है।
क्या करते हैं ये लोग?
मजदूरी करते हैं।
तो अब क्या लग रहा है, इधर कोई सुरक्षा वगैरह नहीं था क्या?
सुरक्षा था, हम लोग अब घर जा रहे हैं, काम खत्म हो गया।
कहाँ पे है कैंप आपका?
हम रहते थे साल्टन चौक पर, खान पैलेस में।
तो उधर क्या सिक्योरिटी है?
हाँ, वहाँ तो हमेशा फौजी रहता है।
हाँ। फिर अब क्या हुआ, अब माहौल कैसे बदला?
माहौल नहीं, हमको घर जाना है, उधर जाकर घर में शादी काटना है।
Several of the families like that of Nusrat Jahan have been waiting here. It's a long wait and perhaps a sense of uncertainty. Several of those labourers are not going to work out of fear, but those who do are uncertain what lies ahead. The others who have option have made it to not just national highways, but have taken trains, buses, any sort of means to get out of Kashmir Valley. They say they will return only when things are normal. But for now, what lies ahead is a sense of fear and insecurity. With camera person Sanjeev, this is Kamaljeet Sandhu in Srinagar for India Today.
Now, there's been a spurt in violence in the Kashmir Valley in the recent days, with jihadi squads out to kill innocent civilians, many of them from outside Kashmir. India Today has exclusive information about Pakistan's hand behind these civilian killings, and many of these groups have come forward and simply claimed credit for it. Top officers of Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, or the ISI, held a top-secret meeting with these terror groups. The meeting held in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir's Muzaffarabad on September the 21st. The ISI and terror groups prepared a plan to flare up and raise tensions in Jammu and Kashmir. They decided on maximum target killings in Kashmir. A hit list of 200 for murder was prepared to create sensation in the valley. As terrorists continue to target civilians in the valley, multiple security alerts have been sounded in J&K following intelligence agencies' alert. Agencies have warned security establishments over a new terrorist group called the Harkat 313. Chances are you haven't heard the name. I hadn't heard the name until a few days ago. But according to this new intelligence report, this new terrorist organization, Harkat 313, has been tasked to launch terror attacks on security and government infrastructure in the Union Territory. Harkat 313 is planning to launch attacks on Uri Haidel power projects in North Kashmir. Anantnag's emergency landing strip is also on this particular group's terror radar. Intelligence also suggests that the Hizbul Mujahideen is planning to target religious leaders to create public outrage and major law and order situation in the valley. Sarpanch and non-local, people from outside Kashmir are also on target. Here are the big questions we're asking. Why hasn't India responded to these uninterrupted provocations that have been mounted by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir over the last 2 weeks? 20 deaths. And we took the names of all those 20 persons. Question number 2. Is the government still digesting the rapid escalation and violence? Has it been completely paralyzed by things just appearing to flare up out of control, that it's just sitting on its hands, not really knowing what action to take? Is India waiting on a time and place of choosing to respond? You know, the excuse that is usually given, time and place of choosing. Since all terror is Pakistan linked, that is the source of all terror, the fountainhead of jihadi terrorism in the world, will India's response be punitive? Will we have punishing response on Pakistan? Has this violent flare-up revealed major gaps in India's security policy? Starting from the abrogation of 370 until now, have there been gaps in India's security policy? Because it doesn't appear to have really helped. Do the attacks confirm that policy and defense have both faltered in ensuring that any kind of alteration in the geopolitical tensions of the region, and we're talking about Afghanistan now, will not ensure that things are kept on a steady keel in Kashmir? And that is precisely what has happened now. I want you, the viewer, to consider something as we digest and as the government also clearly digests the deaths of 20 Indians, 11 civilians and 9 army personnel. I just want to give you a bit of perspective on how India has responded in the past to such provocations. Remember, I've just taken 3 examples from the recent years. Pathankot in 2016 was a terror attack on the Pathankot Air Force Station by Pakistani terrorists. The death toll in that was 7 persons, all of them military personnel. India's response, an assault on Pakistan army bunkers, which resulted in the deaths of between 10 and 15 Pakistan army personnel. Later that same year in 2016, there was the Uri terror attack in September 2016. The death toll in that was 19 Indian army soldiers. India's response, you know the answer already. It was the famous surgical strikes of September 28th, 29th of 2016. The death toll in that Indian response was 38 jihadi terrorists who had been trained and funded by Pakistan. Huge loss for Pakistan. Cut to 2019. You know which terror attack I'm going to talk about. It's the Pulwama terror attack in February 2019. The death toll in that was 40. 40 CRPF personnel were butchered by a Jaish-e-Mohammed suicide bomber. India's response just a few days later was the Balakot airstrikes, in which an unspecified number of Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists were slaughtered and an entire hilltop facility was destroyed by Indian Air Force Mirage 2000 fighters. And now we cut to 2021, where we're talking about this big flare-up that started in 2020 and has continued now into 2021. We're seeing the death toll of 11 civilians and 9 army soldiers. It's more than the number of people who were killed during the Uri attack in 2016. Just to give you some perspective, even though it's 2 separate attacks, India's response is still awaited. And that's the question we're asking. What is the government doing? What are the government's options? Let me paint you a broad picture of what the government's options could possibly be based on how things have played out in the past. 3 big options. There may be some smaller, more well-defined or well-refined options, but broadly speaking, ladies and gentlemen, these are the options. 1, punitive cross-border surgical strikes. Special forces are sent across the LOC like they were in 2016 to conduct some kind of shock and awe operation which stuns the Pakistanis. Option 2, punitive airstrikes on Pakistan like they were done in Balakot. And remember, none of these are easy. They're extremely complex and difficult. It's far easier said than done. And these words are rolling off my tongue. But remember, I take all of this very, very seriously. Option number 3, India scraps the ceasefire that has been in existence at the line of control since February this year. Because even though ceasefire violations have come to a standstill, the proxy war through terror by Pakistan has continued non-stop. Let's take those options one by one. Gaurav Sawant, who tracks Pakistan and India and especially Jammu and Kashmir very closely, is with me live. Gaurav, we've got these 3 options on our screen. And the only reason I've put them up on our screen is because these are the 3 options that are recent, that are fresh in people's memories and have been actively demonstrated by the Indian state in the last few years. Option 1, punitive cross-border surgical strikes. Option 2, punitive airstrikes on Pakistan. Option 3, scrapping of the LOC ceasefire. And India saying, let's not pretend there is a ceasefire on the LOC any longer. We're going to target you where it hurts. How is this playing out for you, Gaurav?
From what officials in the government tell us, Shiv, the situation is extremely grim. The LOC ceasefire is holding as for now because the infiltration, from what government sources claim, there is no cover fire being given to these terrorists as they infiltrate from any of the known Pakistani positions, as was the case in the past. And that is where they say that in the past, in case a Pakistani gun position or a Pakistani position was giving any kind of cover fire, they would take down that particular post. That's not happening as of now. Point 2, both the strikes that had taken place in the past, whether it was the surgical strike or the airstrikes at Balakot, government said they were preemptive strikes to prevent the next terror attack. That was the nomenclature, that was the terminology that was used by the government. As of now, there is no response in these terms except for the effort to neutralize terrorists on own side. Across, whether it's the corps commander, whether it's division commanders or LOC brigade commanders, they've been saying all launch pads are full, but the LOC ceasefire is holding as of now. So could one reason be, Shiv, because there is a situation at the line of actual control with more than 50,000 troops deployed along the India-China line of actual control. Again, China carrying out a certain number of maneuvers on their side, whether it's live firing drills or bringing in more of their rocket forces. Is India's response more measured as of now? Also the fact that you have a Joe Biden administration in the United States of America and not a Donald Trump. Is that the reason why India's response, as of now at least, is limited to neutralizing the terrorists who've already crossed the LOC? But they're saying operations are underway even as we speak.
3 options. There are many in-between options of all of these that could be calibrated depending on the way things actually play out. Remember, the circumstances are different, especially with what's been happening in Afghanistan. We'll have to wait and see how things play out. For the moment, there is an exodus of migrant labor from the Kashmir Valley, from people terrified and wanting to leave from there. So this is a situation that's spiraling out of control, and the government needs to get a handle on it. Gaurav, thank you very much for that. Well, the clamour in the meanwhile, as all of this plays out, there is this clamour to cancel the upcoming India-Pakistan T20 match after targeted killings in the valley continue. The father of a Golgappa seller from Bihar who was killed by terrorists in Srinagar and a Punjab minister, Harkat Singh, are some of whom have demanded the cancellation of this upcoming India-Pak T20 match. It's an issue that has deeply divided people because it is such an emotive issue. But there are some underlying facts that you should know about as well. Watch this report.
Well, the slot been beautifully driven, and that's through the floor. That's the other thing.
The most awaited cricket clash in the world on October 24th.
I don't think he saw that.
Clash of the cricketing titans. The mega face-off. India versus Pakistan. All eyes are on India and Pakistan's T20 World Cup match in Dubai. But the spurt in civilian killings across Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan pushing terror infiltrators, leading to deaths of Jawans, casting a shadow on the cricketing event. Listen into this anguished father of 30-year-old Golgappa seller Arvind Kumar Saha from Bihar, who was shot dead by terrorists on Saturday in Srinagar.
अभी पाकिस्तान के साथ खेला होने वाला है, उसको लेकर के क्या कहेंगे? सरकार का क्या रुख होना चाहिए?
उसको रोक देना चाहिए। ऐसा धांधली हो रहा है तो आदमी जिएगा, सब तो मरिए जाएगा। बिहारियों को मार रहा है।
The grieving father has also demanded an ex gratia of 50 lakh rupees and strict action against Pakistan-sponsored terrorists. The cancel India-Pakistan match chorus has been joined by Punjab Minister Harkat Singh.
पाकिस्तान की तरफ से 9 जवानों को हमारे शहीद कर दिया गया और ऊपर से ये 2020 का मैच, क्या ये होना संभावित है? क्या जरूरी है ये?
देखो यार, होना तो नहीं चाहिए। देखो, आज जिस दौर से हम गुजर रहे हैं, अल्टीमेटली वो हमारा पड़ोसी है, लेकिन पड़ोसी को पड़ोसी की तरह बिहेव करना चाहिए।
Despite the clamor to scrap the India-Pakistan T20 clash, former J&K CM Farooq Abdullah batted for friendship with Pakistan.
मैं समझता हूँ कोई भी रास्ता दोस्ती की तरफ ले जाए वो अच्छा है, और हमें अल्लाह से ये उम्मीद करनी चाहिए कि हम दोनों मुल्कों में एक दोस्ती हो, एक हम-आहंगी हो।
Union Minister Giriraj Singh asked the government to reconsider its decision.
And that's surprising that it's not.
मैच होना चाहिए या नहीं? टारगेट करके हमले किए जा रहे हैं पाकिस्तान की तरफ।
मेरा मानना है अगर संबंध अच्छे ना हो तो उस पर दिशा।
The Indian government may not have much to say in cancellation of the match organized by ICC, but it has indicated that engaging Pakistan on terror is very well on the agenda. New Delhi has called a meet of NSAs on Afghanistan, and Pakistan is also an invitee. With Rohit Singh in Patna, Bureau Report, India Today.
And we've got some breaking news coming in on that story. After Union Minister Giriraj Singh opposed the upcoming India-Pakistan T20 match, now Bihar's Deputy Chief Minister Karkishore Prasad has joined the chorus to call off the India-Pak match at the World T20. Bihar's Deputy Chief Minister says the match must be halted to give a message to Pakistan for supporting terrorism. So far, you've only got Giriraj Singh, who is a minister who usually takes very strong, provocative positions. And now you've got the Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, Tarkishore Prasad, who says the Pakistan-India match should be cancelled. Well, we've been talking about the line of control so far. Let's take you to what's been happening on the line of actual control with China, or rather what one company in Uttar Pradesh has been doing for soldiers deployed in that area. A year after the deadly Galwan clash, where China used barbed clubs to attack Indian troops, an Indian company under a Make in India initiative has developed and provided non-lethal weapons to the Indian army. Some of them will seem very familiar to you, like the Trishul. They say that this will give a befitting reply to the Chinese in a similar fashion, couched in culture and tradition. And these images have been going viral for many different reasons on the internet. Watch this full report by India Today's Manjeet Negi. It was June 15th last year. India and China locked in a deadly face-off in eastern Ladakh's Galwan sector. 20 Indian soldiers and an unspecified number of Chinese soldiers paid the heaviest price, with casualties in a terrifying bloodbath. The Chinese side used non-lethal weapons like iron rods, spikes, barbed wires and batons to inflict heavy casualties on the Indian side. Now, a year after the clash, Indian forces are ready to give a befitting reply to any Chinese mischief in a similar fashion. India Today has exclusive images of non-lethal weaponry being provided to the Indian army. These weapons developed by an Indian company, Aposteron.
After the Chinese used non-lethal weapon against the Indian troops in Galwan Valley, Indian forces have also taken a step to give a befitting reply to Chinese army. We are showing you some of the non-lethal weapons developed by Aposteron for the Indian forces.
Let's tell you the details of these non-lethal weapons one by one. This is the Vajra, or the Thunderbolt. It also gets a mention in the Vedas, the mighty weapon in the possession of Indra.
This is the first non-lethal weapon, whose name is Vajra, and there is a complete current flowing on this complete rod, and there are metal spikes which can be used to tase the Chinese soldier or any of the person. And apart from that, it can be used to puncture the bulletproof vehicles. There is a button.
Next is the Trishul or Trident, the weapon of Lord Shiva. It's a short-handled weapon mounted on a stick.
This is a traditional non-lethal weapon which we know by a name of Trishul. It is a weapon of Lord Shiva, inspired by Trishul. In this also, current flows on the top and in the complete body.
These gloves are not ordinary gloves. With armored knobs, they're highly useful in hand-to-hand close combat.
In the series of non-lethal weapon, this is our third product, whose name is Sapper Punch. This can be weared as normal gloves, but only difference is current flows in complete glove, and this is very useful in hand-to-hand combat against the enemy. This can be weared like a traditional glove.
This black stick is done or baton. Two versions of these electric-operated batons are operated to take on Chinese mischief.
This is a third weapon, whose name is Dund version 2, and this is Dund. This is also a same polycarbonate lathi, in which current flows in the complete body. This can be operated via safety switch. If an enemy snatches this weapon from the soldier, it cannot be operated unless and until there is a safety switch weared in his hand.
And this is the Bhadra, also known as shield, that will protect Indian soldiers from bodily assaults.
In the series of non-lethal weapon, this is our sixth product, Bhadra, which is a shield, which is usually used to protect our soldiers from, like if someone is pelting, there is a stone pelting, or there is a mob is approaching towards the soldier. So this will act as a temporary non-lethal weapon, which will make the enemy blind.
From Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, the situation at the line of actual control is still tense. And at this point of time, these non-lethal weapons can give Indian soldiers that much-needed edge. With Manjeet Negi, Bureau Report, India Today. Meanwhile, Durga Puja celebrations were marred by violence in Bangladesh over the last few days, with several instances of vandalism at Durga Puja pandals and attacks on temples that have been reported. At least 5 people were killed and many left injured in this violence. Here's more.
Minority Hindus targeted. Temples vandalized. Widespread violence marred Durga Puja celebration. At least 5 killed and scores injured in communal unrest in neighboring Bangladesh. All this over alleged blasphemy incident at a Durga Puja pavilion in Communal, about 100 kilometers from Dhaka, leading to havoc unleashed by unidentified bigots. The violence erupted in more than a dozen districts across Bangladesh. The unruly mob attacked the ISKCON temple in Naukhali on the last day of Durga Puja on Friday. Hundreds of protesters brutally attacked priests and devotees. One devotee, Parth Das, was brutally beaten up and killed. His body was thrown in the pond and found on Saturday.
আমরা অবস্থান করছি আন্তর্জাতিক কৃষ্ণ ভবনামৃত সংঘ ইসকন নোয়াখালীতে। এখানে একদল সন্ত্রাসী বাহিনী এসে আমাদের পুরো মন্দির, রথ, মন্দিরের গাড়ি, প্রভুপাদের বিগ্রহ থেকে শুরু করে 2 জন ভক্তকে মেরে ফেলেছে।
Security has been tightened across several sensitive areas after days of communal violence during Durga Puja celebration. The paramilitary border guard Bangladesh has expanded the vigil to more than half of total 64 administrative districts.
The violence forced ISKCON to dial Prime Minister Narendra Modi and UN to interfere and ensure peace.
प्रधानमंत्री के जो सेक्रेटरी उनसे बात किया बताया और प्रधानमंत्री से रिक्वेस्ट करने के लिए बोला कि वो बांग्लादेश के प्रधानमंत्री से बात करें, और हम लोग ने यूनाइटेड नेशन में भी चिट्ठी भेजा है सेक्रेटरी जनरल को, और हम लोग ये डिमांड कर रहे हैं कि इमीडिएटली यूनाइटेड नेशन है किस लिए आखिर।
India has termed the violence disturbing, and Indian High Commission along with the consulates are in close contact with authorities in Dhaka.
India must extend necessary help to Sheikh Hasina to ensure that Hindus can live in Bangladesh in peace without fear of persecution.
The members of ISKCON Kolkata staged a protest in front of Bangladesh High Commission in Kolkata demanding justice.
Appeal to the Indian government to raise their voice, to do something to extend security and support for the devotees who are threatened in Bangladesh.
Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has issued a tough warning on Wednesday. She said that those involved will be hunted down.
পর্যন্ত 43 জন গ্রেফতার হয়েছে, মামলা রুজু প্রক্রিয়াধীন আছে। আমরা চাই যে ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত ব্যক্তি ওনার পক্ষ থেকে অভিযোগটি দায়ের করা হলে সেই মামলাটা ভালো হবে, সুন্দর হবে। এখন অভিযোগ যাবে, মামলা হবে। যতগুলো ঘটনা ঘটেছে প্রত্যেকটাকে কেন্দ্র করে মামলা হবে।
Across the border, the recent attacks created a political storm. TMC has called for action. The state BJP met ISKCON officials and announced protest against attacks on temples.
বিশ্বাস করি যে
হাসিনা সরকার ধর্মনিরপেক্ষ সরকার, তারা নিশ্চিতভাবে যথাযথ এর অ্যাকশন নেবে।
सो कॉल्ड सेकुलर ममता बनर्जी जो बंगालियों की अस्मिता की बात करती हैं, आज कहाँ है? किस बिल में छिपी हुई? शेख हसीना के राज में वहाँ इतना बड़ा जुल्म हुआ है, एक बार भी उनका जवान नहीं निकल रहा है।
The minority Hindu community makes up about 10% of the population in Bangladesh, but has suffered religious persecution. With Indrajit Kundu and Prema Rajaram in Kolkata and Mazhar Islam Khan in Dhaka, Bureau Report, India Today.
Piyush Krishnadas, spokesperson of the ISKCON temple, recounts the horrifying mob frenzy in Bangladesh. This is an exclusive report to India Today.
Now I want to show you all the incident, all the crime spot, and I think that will be very clarified to you. You see, this is our office room, our ISKCON Noakhali temple, and they broke all the glasses here, and you see the PC, our computer, our laser, everything was broken by the invaders. Okay, this is our gift shop. And here you see everything. Here is the you see the picture of our Lord Sri Krishna, Radha Madhava, and that was totally broken by the invaders. And actually, we can't say that they are just invaders. They are actually Muslim, and they are mainly the local Muslim. And after completing their prayer, they gathered about 400 to 500 persons. They gathered and they attacked with our devotees with a very strong weapon. And here there was a hand cash of more than 5 to 6 lakh money, and they looted everything. And not only the ISKCON temple, there are all the temples that is located in ISKCON Chomoni, all are being vandalized by the community. You see, this is the statue of our ISKCON founder. You see how they burned it. It is a great sorrow and heartbreaking news for all over for the devotees of ISKCON all over the world. Not only the ISKCON members. It is a shame, and it is a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching things for all of the members. And I want to say that it is actually I can't express it in what you see. How the broken hand of our founder.
Let's also listen to the Bangladesh Home Minister, who has called the recent attacks an attempt to disrupt communal harmony.
আপনাদের কাছে এইটুকু আমরা বলতে চাই, আপনাদের কাছেও যদি কোনো তথ্য থাকে আমাদেরকে জানাবেন। আমরা সুনিশ্চিত এটা একটা উদ্দেশ্য প্রণোদিত একটা অস্থিতিশীল পরিস্থিতির সৃষ্টি করার জন্য, আমাদের যে একটা সম্প্রীতির দেশ বাংলাদেশ, সেটাকে বিনষ্ট করার জন্য এই ঘটনাটি ঘটিয়েছে।
The BJP staged a protest in Kolkata a short while ago against the attack on that temple in Bangladesh. BJP workers and leaders held banners condemning the damage to the temple. These are images from that small protest in Kolkata earlier today.
नहीं, टीएमसी तो सोचता है कि बांग्लादेश के हिंदुओं पर हमला करने का विरोध करेंगे तो यहाँ का मुसलमान वोट हट जाएगा। तो ये दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। हम चाहते हैं कि सब लोग विरोध करें। भारत सरकार बात कर रही है, प्रधानमंत्री जी भी शायद इंटरवेन करेंगे, हमारा मांग है, क्योंकि बांग्लादेश के जो बंगाली हिंदू है वो हमारे ही सज्जन है, हमारे ही भाई है, हमारे ही बहन है। उनका रक्षा करना भारत सरकार का भी जिम्मेदारी में आता है। इनके लिए सीएए बनाया गया है।
Meanwhile, stirring tensions on the back of this violence in Bangladesh is a cleric right here in India. Furfura Sharif cleric Abbas Siddiqui's remarks on the Quran have kicked off a controversy. A video has gone viral on social media in which Siddiqui can be seen saying that those who placed a copy of the Quran near the feet of Hanuman in the Durga Puja Pandal in Bangladesh should be beheaded. The BJP has demanded the arrest of Siddiqui over his threats. Here's more.
তুমি যদি মনে করো
An outrageous and shocking call to arms by Pirzada Abbas Siddiqui. In this viral video, the cleric of the Furfura Sharif shrine can be heard saying heads of those disrespecting Quran should be chopped into pieces.
তোমার স্বাধীনতা আছে কোরআনকে অপমান করা, তোমার স্বাধীনতা আছে ইসলামের বিরুদ্ধে বলা, তোমার স্বাধীনতা আছে রাসূলের গুস্তাখি করা। তুমি যদি মনে করে এই স্বাধীনতা তোমার আছে, তাহলে আমি আব্বাস সিদ্দিকী আজকে বলে যাচ্ছি, আমারও স্বাধীনতা তোমার ঘর থেকে কল্লাকে আলাদা করে দেওয়ার সময় এসে গেছে।
Siddiqui also called for the beheading of people who place the Quran near the feet of Hanuman in Durga Puja pandals in Bangladesh.
বাংলাদেশে কি হচ্ছে? কোরআন শরীফ পবিত্র একটা কিতাব, যে কিতাব একটা হনুমানের ছবি পায়ের গোড়ায় রেখেছে।
Siddiqui made the statement at a religious event on Friday. It comes in the wake of attacks on Durga Puja pandals in Bangladesh. The BJP has demanded the arrest of Siddiqui over his threats.
अभी अब्बास सिद्दीकी को हिरासत में लेना चाहिए, गिरफ्तार करना चाहिए और उनके खिलाफ सांप्रदायिकता का आग लगाने का, सांप्रदायिकता भड़काने का काम जो इन्होंने किया, इसके लिए उनको कड़ी से कड़ी दंडित किया जाए, ऐसा हमारा मांग।
The ruling Trinamool Congress has questioned the left leadership over its silence on Siddiqui's statement. Siddiqui's party, Indian Secular Front, had contested the Bengal elections in alliance with the Left Front and the Congress. While the TMC targets the left, its government is now under pressure to act against Siddiqui. Bureau Report, India Today.